no citizen comments. We can't vote on the consent agenda. So these will all, the minutes will roll over to the next meeting, whether it be a special meeting or the, what month are we in? May. We don't have a May meeting, do we? Correct. That's a conflict.
That was my suggestion.
Yep, so it would be June unless we have a special meeting. Director's report. So I can give you that. There is a new advisory committee. So it is the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee, DIFAC, D-I-F-A-C. And so this is required by state statute. There is more information on the website if you want to look into it. It has not been live streamed to date. The Development Impact Fee Advisory, basically if you're going to have a development impact fee, you have to have an advisory committee made up of citizens who can weigh in on the fees. And so that fulfills that obligation, and so we're moving forward. And I don't think this group has really dove into impact fees. That's typically for new construction. You can have it from anywhere from water, sewer, fire, streets. Basically, as new subdivisions come into the city, there is a fee assessed to their development that offsets the demand that they're creating with the creation of new lots and development. So Idaho is unique in that they require a impact fee advisory committee, and so that's what this board is fulfilling. I believe the seats, they had a hard time getting all of the seats to get to a quorum. They just have a new member, and they just had their first meeting actually last week. Or was it? No, that's their second meeting, right? First meeting, okay. So that's another, we were actually trying at one point to try and dovetail the Public Works Advisory Committee with the DIFAC, but the roles and responsibilities are similar, but not similar enough in that this board looks at from the city's perspective, the DIFAC may look at it more from a private development viewpoint, and so we were advised that we should have two separate committees. The Public Works Expo is still moving forward. That is May 23rd. That's at the fairgrounds, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. As in the past, we've we had it running pretty good, and then we got shut down for 2 or 3 years because of COVID. So this is, I think, our third year since COVID. Wow. So we saw well, obviously 0 to now we're slowly creeping back up into the pre-COVID numbers, but it's been taking a few years to get back on that. It's targeted to children or school-age kids. In fact, we exclusively blast the schools to get them to RSVP, get them to bring the classes. It's what age group are we specifically targeting, Haley?
Looking at all the activities are geared towards kindergarten to third
grade. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say, I know that everybody says they're always, having done public works ones in the past. The parents, the grandparents, everybody else, they're just absolutely amazed, even though I know we do that. And so I printed out some of the flyers, the posters that you had, and I've been trying to put them out there a little bit, at some of the places that I visit, so that, maybe we can get more community members there. And so I'm trying to go out and, when I get there to do that, so like seniors or something like that, because I think the more that people come and see all the things it's really mind-blowing to a lot of people. And I think you came last year, right, with kids? Yep. And it's great. Your staff is wonderful.
Yeah, and I think the disarming aspect of, people like to complain about the city or what we did or we didn't do, and so disarming them of like, here's the kids, we've got funny little hats and little games to play, but you can actually, there's so much to learn about the actual function of public works. And even if you didn't want to learn, you just wanted to have a conversation with the director or the sanitation people, we're there, we're sharing what we do. So this has been the setup the city's had for, as long as I've been in the Valley. So I think this is a great group we always have a debrief, so maybe we'll circle back in June or July to kind of see if this group wants to take that expo in a different direction. It's a lot of it is just everybody's so busy, and so by having a single day expo, we ramp up, we ramp down, We have all of the exhibits, we have everything pre-built. It takes weeks to get it all. I mean, we have the sand table, we have the exploded toilet, we have the model of the wastewater plant. That all takes a lot of time and it always breaks in transit, setting it up, putting it in the back of a truck and then bringing it up to the fairground. So there's always hot glue guns and things like that out there. So circle the date, May 23rd. A little bit more into some specifics on projects, the sewer bypass line, if you were trying to get to City Hall today.
Add something to the expo thing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So we are pretty heavily involved in Meridian Public Works Day or Expo as well. So if it's something that you'd be interested in having, we'd be more than happy to participate as well.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we should probably look at, because I've had other, like Clearwater Compost, they're a contractor of the city, but they're going to participate, and I've had a couple different engineering
Is this
firms.
the first year for them?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Engineering firms who would offer just, just to be there and and I'd not, I'd have to run it through, make sure everybody's good with it, but it's not like you're there soliciting business to fourth graders, so.
Yeah, good volunteer outreach.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah. So I think that might be something, maybe not this year, but next year as we move forward, because we have had struggles. It's great in theory, because we're valley-wide, so we've always had, the Soda County PUD, Soda County, Clarkston, Nez Perce County, but they're feeling the hit as everybody else, and so for them to carve out, bring their equipment out, we've gotten less and less participation from the other agencies. So, it might be good to kind of diversify the pool and, let them see, and we could have conversations about, what your station would be, and I'd be open to it, so. So yeah, the sewer bypass line project, that is going on right now in front of the courthouse project that's tied to the bypass. So there's two separate projects if anybody cares. There's the courthouse project, which is the big steel building that's being constructed out of our corner of our building here. All the different frontage improvements. I mean, what's impacting us is all the construction equipment that's staged out there, but you can obviously see the courthouse being built. There's also a separate project, which is the city's project, which is a sewer bypass project. So the Bargain Hunter Mall, which is somewhat kitty corner from us here, the developer, we reached out to the developer to demonstrate a need to put sewer bypass under the train tracks, and so moving it north through there. And that basically is almost done at this point. So if you go on the Levy bypass road, you'll see the temporary signal up. So that was part of that project, and now you'll see all this other stuff. There is some significant bypass pumping going back to the courthouse project for the tie-in, and so they are taking a 36-inch, a very large sewer line to do the tie-in, and these sewer lines, I think I talked to the guys today. The concrete in this thing was like the shortest. It wasn't a typical bell that you would see on a sewer. It was basically poured in place with 1930s vintage soft concrete. So what they made up in strength of concrete, they made up with thickness. And so we've had a heck of a time trying to tie in that line. The bypass pumping. So when I talk about bypass pumping, they take the sewage that's flowing down the pipe, take it out with a pump, put it on the surface through a pipe, and put it back into the pipe down, so you have a dry section so you can work in that without the sewer running through the middle of it. And the higher the flow, obviously the more challenging it is. And then you put on top of the challenge of an old 1930s vintage homemade manhole. It's been a tremendous challenge. And so we've been working with the contractor, we've been working with Public Works, wastewater crews, and they still actually, they tested it yesterday or the day before, so they haven't even started the work. They haven't even got the bypass going yet, so that's been a huge project. And this courthouse project, we all knew it would be a long, tedious project, overlapping the same time Memorial Bridge was happening. Then you have this other sewer project that we're working on, and it's not even, it's April. So there's a lot of construction going on right in a very concentrated area. I think the public has been very patient with us, because this is also the same section of the city that we put the water main in last summer. So I think we're doing our best to work with businesses, Nez Perce County, the contractors, and even City Hall, just getting here to pay your bills. So our sewer project is tapering out and closing out. This bypass project for the courthouse should be closed out, I think, 2 weeks. Once that's done, two-way traffic will be open back up on Main Street. It'll still be a construction zone all down here for another year, but it won't be as impactful on the traffic.
Are you seeing a lot of complaints right now? I mean, on Facebook or anything? Are people really complaining that much?
No. I mean, the only ones that are really legitimately are the businesses that are being impacted, because they've from all the way back to last summer's water line project to the courthouse, just there's no parking, and so we have to keep the county operating. So there's trials, licensing, City Hall. We've basically wiped out 3/4 of the parking in this part of town, and so
people in general don't want to go near construction, so it usually brings down their
So
customer volume.
And there was the city did not. There was a miscommunication. There should have been a press release that went out notifying everybody, including the businesses. It didn't get out, so the businesses said, "We had no idea you were going to be doing this," and so
okay, so that makes sense.
Yep. So
all right, now I know why that makes sense.
I don't think this. I haven't got complaints from the traveling public per se. I think we also have 21st Street under construction right now.
I think some people feel like at least they're seeing work happening.
That-
Instead of like stagnant, like, okay, oh look, our money is being put to work.
That's the messaging of, yes, you're either upset because the infrastructure's crappy, or you're stuck in traffic because we're trying to fix it.
Yeah.
So it's a transition of, I don't want to see, I mean,
Much inconvenience do you want?
we're in a crazy window right now of, the treatment plants, the multiple bridges being worked on,
Oh yeah.
a courthouse, some significant stuff in downtown, 21st Street. Next summer will be Snake River Avenue. Like, we have a lot
At
of.
least then it would probably just, when you do Snake River, hopefully it's just Snake River and then maybe a little bit more of the courthouse, but maybe not everywhere. I don't know.
I
guess we'll see, but
It's funny. It's some of it is just deferred, that it just happens that because it's like WashDOT's painting the Blue Bridge. We have no control over. That's a whole separate state entity, and we've tried to communicate the schedules.
Is that what they're doing over there? Okay.
Well, no, not that's scheduled. I think for next. The Blue Bridge has gone on and off their budget multiple times.
Well, because they've been having one way over there, or not one way, but one lane, two, and so it's been interesting trying to get over there recently. So okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So and it's funny because most of the public, they don't care whether it's the city, the county, the state, the other state. You people are causing me not to be able to go get my Effie's burger. So yes, I hopefully in 2 years with Memorial Bridge done, the courthouse done, the main impact here. At that point, we may be moving forward. Oh, the next one on the direct is the Main Street project. That one, the mayor, I think I updated the group in one of our meetings. The mayor is pushing forward on to take it to the voters in the spring. So next spring of 25, it would be a general obligation bond, but the obligation has already been budgeted. It would just allow that obligation to be bonded against. It is property taxes, but to take that, I think it's about $1.7 million of property taxes and bond against that, and then build it all in one. Instead of waiting for it to build up in reserves, you build it up front. There shouldn't be any impact on property taxes because it's already been allocated for.
I just hope they really sell that good.
Arterial
because you don't sell that good, and they're going to immediately hear property tax increase.
Yep.
No, that's not the case.
No.
It's all those types of measures and it's how well you can write your fact sheets and make sure it's clear and understood.
Yeah, and I've, the engineering contract is on the council's agenda Monday, so that should be awarded, or consideration for award would be Monday. If it is awarded, the firm has put a lot of budget and emphasis on public outreach and kind of, feeling out, because there's the design, but then there's also, the city cannot solicit vote, how people vote. We can
Right,
only
yeah.
educate, and so, but there have
Be
been.
careful how you put the information.
Yep, but that is, there's already been outreach from the downtown block that they're interested in doing that for the city because, it's impacts them. So I'm assuming there will be people who are for it and against it and advocating for it, and the city will provide the information, but the city will not be the one out there advocating for it one way or the other. So that should be rolling out in the spring, and I'll be, speaking to groups and providing as much information as I can, but a lot of that will be handled by the Downtown Property Association, the Chamber, and, and then the information will be, the contractor has in their budget to meet with each individual business and property owner to get feedback, because a lot of it, you think about deliveries, detours, all of those things will impact the business. And so if we can kind of load that into a large, spreadsheet and say, okay, this business needs deliveries on Wednesdays, and here's the access to them, and we can kind of start forming up. Not gonna make everybody, nothing ever is gonna line up perfect,
Yeah.
but you can kind of start. The more information we have on the front end, it's easier to build that into the schedule in the project than to try and adjust once it's out there.
And not to mention, there's the Blue Bridge coming off there, and then that's a lot of traffic flow too, that usually goes through Main Street, right?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Just some real quick updates. The Blue Ridge letter went to WashDOT, a contact that we have that serves on the MPO Technical Advisory Committee. He's acknowledged receipt. That was on the 20th of March, so we haven't heard anything back from him on that. And then I'll have some updates when we get to on the agenda as far as the make sure that I do have, the budget. I have my own agenda item, so I will stop there. If there's any other questions, comments on director's report. Okay. I guess I would, since we can't take any action on the traffic calming, I would say that we should punt on that. Given where we're at on the budget calendar and construction, the traffic calming is not a huge priority, so I don't feel like we can kind of put a pin on it and come back when we have availability. But it's up to the group. We've got Laura's comments. There's been a couple different rounds of comments, so I think they've all been incorporated. Or I've read it about 3 or 4 times. I'm comfortable with where we're at, and
I'll just, I appreciate the streamlining of it. It's much more concise now. It doesn't, I'm glad kind of the appeals thing has been kind of removed and just kind of say, here's the appeals process over on separate, so I think that was good. I also wanted to say thank you for putting diagrams and pictures in. It really makes it much better for folks, when you're trying to explain something, that they can see it. And then I just had a couple other comments and concerns that, we can bring up when when we re-agendize it and talk about it, so.
Because we can't change anything.
There's
We talked
nothing.
about it.
we can discuss it if you want, but there's really nothing.
But
that we
I
can
just, and
direct
so
us to.
just, thank you for that work. It was a big difference, so thank you.
This I guess it kind of has, well, maybe not, but with doing that police academy thing, they had talked about you guys are meeting, I don't know, once a month with the police department, or you guys have a little group now?
Yeah, there's a couple different groups.
Yeah,
There's
so-
addressing and is there another traffic?
We had a meeting scheduled today, but we didn't have anything on the agenda, so I actually canceled it.
Yeah, no, that's
But
good.
yes, we have one scheduled monthly.
And that was recent, right? That we came, that started becoming a regular thing.
Yeah, we started last year.
Yeah, and they really kudos that's you guys are
That was-
having that communication now.
Yeah.
That was we had a comment, I think, I was kind of saying having a monthly meeting with PD engineering,
Yep.
all those things internally. Because when they all talk together, then it seems like a lot, just from my experience, a lot of changes, it's really beneficial. when
Yeah.
They're together.
Yeah, they were pretty happy that
I
become a thing.
appreciate those things because I typically, I have a lot of the conversations with the chief or,
Yeah.
some of the, I don't have conversations with the people who are actually writing the tickets.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they'll say, I won't write a ticket because of this, this, and this. And if we knew about that, we would modify, we would
Get it worked
either let them know why it's okay to write the ticket or, oh yeah, we will change the signage to address that.
I learned so much from the traffic cops when they were
Oh,
out
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
They were like, I love the chief and, I knew the chief quite well and the second, the other chiefs and stuff, I was like,
Yeah.
you're not on the ground foot, you're not this and the
Yep,
right.
yep.
Right, yeah, they don't, yeah, he doesn't know, yeah, no, it was
But they
good.
first love it.
It was kinda cool to see, cause I'd asked him about that and I'm like, yep, we're meeting all the time now, so we're getting a lot of that hammered out. I'm like, that's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah,
That was just kudos, but.
okay, yeah, I appreciate that. I am not participating in those, but I don't need to be either.
Well, whoever
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
kudos to them, you can pass it over, please.
Then we had two applications for the vacant seat. I guess since we don't have a quorum,
I didn't know we were taking act, I had a question, I saw that and all that, so we taking action on it just so I was clear, were we saying yes or no to interview, or we were interviewing both, or is that
if
what?
you.
Yes to no to interview.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Consideration of, do you want to consider the applicant?
Got
If you do, then we would set up interviews.
Okay.
One you've already considered in the past.
Is it a reapply?
No, we never got a
showed
chance
up
to
for
interview.
interviews, so.
I was
Oh.
on the,
Okay,
yeah, we came, I guess, one time and then waited for the other and yeah, it didn't happen, so.
Okay, now to approach to the budget. Kind of an update. That was really good when Amy came and spoke to this group because she used that kind of as a basis moving forward. I brought my laptop because I couldn't print off all of the information, so I might be a little bit scattered on the dates, and I didn't even bring all of my information. Essentially, there's two dates where Public Works is going to have a lot of information. So I'll start high level. The first one is on May 20th, and that is a discussion with the council regarding the rates.
mm-hmm.
And so, is that correct? Are you-
Yeah, and the schedule is in the.
I think I see that, is that budget session 3, yeah,
Okay, I'm going to shoot off that then. So I didn't print out.
3 to 5, Monday, May 20th.
Oh.
I have an extra somewhere.
Okay. So the one that's coming up next week is basically the introduction to the budget. I will be there, but I won't have a lot to, unless they call me specifically. May
Oh,
20th.
I'm going to, no, I'm just kidding.
Right. Oh wait, no, May 13th, I'm sorry, going back a week. May 13th is utility rates. So that is user fees and other proposed rate increases. So we will be talking about how utility rates are formed, what goes into them, and any updates onto why we would need to adjust the rates that we're currently utilizing. Public Works has stormwater, wastewater, water, and sanitation. Those are the four primary enterprise funds. Sanitation at this point looks to be holding steady. We have a reserve built in that has built up that we need to spend down. So there's no at this point it does not appear that we would need to modify rates. There may be even some consideration to lower rates slightly, but probably holding steady. Enterprise funds, particularly user fees like that, are very difficult to forecast out because I can tell you what revenue was last year, but forecasting out revenue for next year and all your demands within capital and operations are playing against that. So what you change today will have an impact 3 or 4 years down the line because that line carries forward. If you raise a percentage point, that point tilts the line one way or the other. So sanitation, probably pretty close to where we're at today based off of revenue figures and where the reserves are sitting right now. Stormwater is another one, we're not changing, it's a brand new utility, it kicked into effect on January 1st, we're now April, so we're 4 months in, so still truthing out revenue, which is gonna truth out how fast we can take on capital projects. So that one is probably, well, I know we won't be making any recommendations for changes, we're basically waiting for a year to get some sort of revenue and adjusting, because most of what we're doing in that is just adjusting operations and expectations for capital. Wastewater is one that, so we've hired a consultant that will be looking at our revenues, expenditures, our capital plans, and our operations. And they're looking exclusively at water and wastewater. So they will be doing the bulk of the presentation on that 13th to the council, talking about what they found.
Is that an update from the previous?
It's just an update. You know, FCS is the consultant, and I've spoken multiple times to the council where we do a capital facility plan, capital planning. Identify the projects, and then what the budget would be to fulfill that, operations, everything else. Then we build a rate study to say, okay, if we're going to take on these projects incrementally, if it's a 5-year cycle, 7-year cycle, this is how much your utilities need to be, while at the same time keeping your reserves healthy, you know, paying any debt service, all the other things. And so then you incorporate that. Where we're at right now in the cycle is we have basically completed our capital facility plans. Those were very centric to the plants, and they're basically done. And so that's why we're doing this kind of a real quick FCS rate study, because there's not a capital facility or a capital plan it's 90% done. So they would look at our plan and say, well, you only have these minimal projects, so you don't really need this, but we know we have significant pipeline replacement projects for both water and wastewater. So we're just gonna do an extension off of the old plan, forecasting out minimally what we know we're gonna need for the project. The bulk of the analysis is gonna be looking at particularly water reserves and the demands of the system that are gonna be needed to be addressed. And go ahead.
No, sorry, I was gonna let you finish first on that.
The only other part I would say to close that for that particular meeting is wastewater has a lot of reserves, has a lot of projects moving right now, as you can see around town. It's just a matter of getting that much project going out at one time is a challenge. So I don't know what that's going to tell you about rates and their recommendations. Water has a lot of issues in the last foreseeable future. It's going to be, do you want to replenish the reserves that were spent down with the reservoir? Do you want to raise rates significantly to catch up with that? Or do you want to take on capital? You can't do all of those. It's just not feasible. So you have to pick generally where do you want to go. And it's, again, we can't triple the rate, what we charge for water. And that's not going to give us enough revenue because we're so far behind, and that's under no fault of any of the current administration or anybody else. It's just we've been dealt a challenging hand and we have to move forward, and we can bemoan the problems that we have, or we can dig ourselves out of this hole. And so I think that's there's a risk of not replenishing the reserves. There's a risk of raising water rates higher than what they are now, and there's a risk of not finishing the capital projects. So that was the only thing I was gonna finish.
So really quick, risk of kind of going into too much detail. How are the reserve budgets or those policies for reserves set? Are they set through each time there's a rate study done, or is there guiding policy the city council has set, or how is that? The
city council adopted the recommendations of the original FCS report, and that identified, certain amount of days of operating reserve. There was, I can't remember exactly, there was a certain amount of days of operating reserve. There was lack of any other, a rainy day fund for when there was a catastrophic event, and then there was a third reserve that was they called it an opportunity fund. And so if sewer was doing a main replacement in one street and the water also needed to be replaced, but it wasn't in the capital plan, instead of ripping up the street multiple times, that opportunity fund would be used to replace that water main. So it would be more efficient, so we could, have more flexibility in our spending without overdrawing in one account or the other. Those funds generally kind of live together because they're in reserves, but we've allocated a certain amount based off of the and that was adopted by the council.
And so are those readdressed each time there's a rate study update?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
So the reason I ask this, I'm going through this with a couple other communities that we're trying to help them adopt kind of a guiding policy that says, hey, here is generally what we're shooting for. Now we can adjust, we can decide each year or every other year, whatever it is, whether or not we're gonna fully fund that piece, but at least we have some sort of guiding, like something that's set that doesn't adjust up or down every year.
Yeah, yeah.
Or with new council members.
Yeah, and I think generally it needs to, the goal was to not overanalyze, so you can skim off a little bit because they accrue interest, and so they kind of sustain themselves, but also, as you invest, case in point would be at the water treatment plant. We've invested a significant amount of money. Do we need to carry a higher reserve because the replacement parts are way more than what we were operating 5 years ago? So I think there's a general analysis done on that. I don't know how fine they get into it with each time they open it up.
We're also restricted, aren't we, too, on, if I remember correctly, I mean, you can raise rates, but it has to cover mostly the cost of doing business, basically, and you can't have too much that you're putting into savings. Like you can't just be like, we're going to charge you this, but we're going to put most of that in a savings account.
And I understand from, because each enterprise fund is an independent enterprise, I can't rob wastewater's enterprise reserves for water. And so you have duplicate reserve funds, and they can't, it's like the operational reserve funds. We only have a certain amount of days in reserves. We're not going to have 4 years of, you can't use that. And so the intent is, I would say, with what we had in reserves and what happened with the reservoir, that was probably the appropriate amount of funds. We exhausted it. Anything more catastrophic would have required, assistance from the state, and that was basically probably the limit of what the city was able to provide. We got a little bit of assistance from the state, but it was a pittance compared to what we took on ourselves. So I think that may be a good case study to go back and look and say, okay, we had a situation, we did use reserves. Was that adequate, or is that more than we would ever use? So, I think that's a great conversation policy-wise.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to revisit, like he says, and having that redefined for your new council and the citizens also to, like, what are we hoping to accomplish and what do we want for reserves to look like? Because now we're kind of starting from the bottom again.
And I was going to kind of spin off from that just a little bit, because in all the years that in going through that myself with public works or a city or a municipality, when you have a CIP, like we discussed and what you're working on now, it seems like once you really lay out a comprehensive CIP, you never have enough money there, because what happens is right now, instead of just identifying just a few here and there, because it's like, well, there's no sense of putting it on the list, because a lot of the time staff, things don't come on the list because, well, there's no money for it. Well, if people don't know about it, then you have a problem where if an emergency does come up, it kind of catches everybody off guard, and then they say, well, why didn't anybody kind of know about it? So in a comprehensive CIP, it seems like you never have enough money for any of your projects because you're always kind of going after and trying to fix all those projects. So that's kind of that part of it I've noticed over the years with a lot of municipalities. And then the only time I've ever seen with enterprise funds, and there was a couple emergencies, I've noticed there was a couple times where they took loans out from an enterprise fund and then they paid it back, but it was approved and everything like that because there was a catastrophic situation. So the reserve at that point from the city was not able to cover that,
Right.
the wastewater reserve had some, and I think they did a small loan on that, it was all done, and then they, with interest, and they paid that back to that account over a 10-year period, and I think there were like restrictions. You have to do it within.
It's very hard to get that.
Right,
passed.
but it's, well, because it's a matter of, can you afford to do it in that 10-year period, or do you have to go someplace else? And usually, sometimes, depending on what a municipality is facing at that point, sometimes you don't want to take your reserves off the city. So I've only seen it once from an enterprise fund to another enterprise fund where it's just, and wastewater have done that a couple times I've seen over the years. It's not common practice, it has to be something kind of catastrophic.
Lewiston has
need
done that in the past.
Yeah, I've done that in the past,
Yeah,
but there was
a
very
loan
much
for
not,
sanitation to the library.
Yeah.
And
Oh, no.
Not that that was a good way to do it.
no, the
and
customers,
agreeance,
they did,
but-
And you see that
it wasn't used correctly.
well, that to me is because it's not an enterprise to an enterprise.
Yeah,
Enterprise to the general fund, I don't think is anyway, but I know that enterprise to an enterprise, because of how their funding mechanisms are totally different,
right.
that, that can be accomplished, with rates and things of that nature, so, anyway, but I think your comprehensive CIP, that once you kind of get towards that with the staff and everybody contributing into it, hey, you start looking at your rates and all, you go, okay, yeah, we do just, it's like as soon as you finish that project or whatever, it always seems like you're a few million behind. And it's just because infrastructure is expensive. You're just always a few
You
million
guys
behind.
technically already have that, it's just not laid out easily for the public currently.
correct.
Or even council. I mean,
Yeah, and us, but they have eyes on it, so
Yeah,
in the
it's,
situation.
I've been pushing on staff, and it's the level of detail can be, because staff level is way into the weeds. Council, the public, they don't really need to see that level,
Right.
and so I'm trying to pull it back versus,
But you give us the clip note.
yeah.
Well, and that's what the executive summary is for.
Yeah.
So, you get for the public and everybody else, that executive summary should tell you everything. And then, what money to budget.
Yeah, well, and what your city is needing to work on.
So
that's May
that's
13th
the
or the
13th.
20th?
13th is the rate proposals.
Rate proposals, okay.
Which, I don't know.
And that is as I said, the FCS consultant will be doing most of the talking on water and wastewater. I think that's where the
Oh, I do see it.
heavy conversation will be as far as priorities, mostly to water, wastewater. Any of the enterprise funds could be getting into the weeds of what is in this, what is that. But
Okay.
I think water is the one that is the most urgent. And then May 20th is capital projects, and so that's where as Laura has recommended, trying to break out operations from capital, and so a lot of that will be specific to enterprise fund, water, capital, here's what we're building, here's the location, wastewater, capital, here's what we're building, and going all down that. It's water, wastewater, sanitation, stormwater are all very simple. It's essentially one fund going in, identified on a capital improvement plan. These are, as I said, this is older-ish facility plan, so these have been vetted. I don't expect a lot of controversy for water, wastewater, storm, even sanitation. There's just not a lot in there that's not been considered. It's kind of the end of the list. There's a lot of work in all of those utilities, so that transportation is going to be probably the bulk. Because we have multiple funding sources, it's the one everybody sees, and so why are you going to do that project? You should do this project. There's the majority of the list that's going to be in front of them, and I don't even have it with me today, is grant-funded projects. When we go through, we apply for grants. A lot of times these grants take multiple years for design and everything else, and so there's a bunch of I went through the list and it's like, oh yeah, that project's still going. It's just been behind the scenes for a long time, and so transportation my goal is to take, because transportation, anything that's not funded through grants is going to be paid through property taxes. Yes, you have allocations for pavement preservation for, for fuel tax and things like that. But if you want to go above and beyond, you can direct staff to go apply for more grants, but it's coming out of property taxes. And so this is where, I want to do this project. Well, to put it across that line into the funding line means you're either going to have to take something else off the list or raise property taxes. And so that's not a realm Public Works typically likes to live in. So, but it is, that's, we serve the public, so that's the conversation. So those are the two big ones that I'm waiting. Obviously, once we get into the higher level conversations late in the budget season.
What time do those start?
3:00.
Both of them?
Yeah, all the work sessions are at 3.
Okay.
I believe those are all in the Bell Building. We got kicked out of. So that's the calendar of events. I have my own working budget here. There's not a lot of, each of these, as I said, I'm looking at wastewater here. We're trying to streamline some of this stuff. So there's a lot of accounts, like maintenance supplies, other. Then there's operating supplies. So we've combined them. So you'll see a line item where it's zeroed out, and then another item that has an excessive amount of revenue or request from it. So we're trying to streamline. It gets really confusing, especially as we get to the end of the budget and you're saying, do we have enough money to purchase this item? Well, this one doesn't, but this one does. Well, why are they? If we can buy something from a fund, why would we have two separate funding sources? So we've done a little bit of just housekeeping, cleaning things up. The other big thing for wastewater and water is Ryan may know some proprietary operation. So with both of these plants, there's some services that we, pumps or whatever it is, when we packaged it together on the plants, we have to have proprietary contracts for service agreements, something that we never had before. And so these are added costs that were not budgeted because we thought we could just fix whatever it is at the plant. Well, you're locked out. You can't get into it without, and then you can't even replace the part because you have to go through the vendor. And this is becoming a huge issue. I feel like it's popping up more frequently now. This was not a common occurrence 5 to 10 years ago, where, and I'm seeing it nationally, not just with what we operate, but like cars. Like you used to be able to work on a vehicle, but now you have to have the proprietary, you gotta take it to Chevy, you gotta take it to Ford. I'm not saying they're one of them, but all of these pumps, all of this data, all of this stuff is proprietary. And so we're having a hard time navigating, one, just to age myself, things don't last like they used to. And two, the proprietary, you have to have a subscription for service. And so that's a problem. We're vetting that out, but that is impacting our requests for budget.
Do you have a software system that does kind of a, it's kind of like it's not a work order system, because I know some try and do a work order system, but I notice a lot of the new software systems that help run water plants and, wastewater plants and whatnot. They have new mechanisms in there where if you buy like a pump or a valve or something like that because usually, the schematics of it shows everything in there. So I noticed the last time is that the last software, updates or the transition to the new software, if you replace that pump that's, part of that system, you can then scan in all your warranty, how often it has to be serviced, what you serviced it with, all those different types of things, and you can kind of click on it to track those and then know, and then it kind of goes into that, how often do you have to do the replacement of things, when you're budgeting and things. Yeah. So is that?
Yes, that's got you're hitting into some real good stuff.
Well, it's just, because like you said, it's not like it used to be. The warranties aren't like they used to be. You know, you used to be able to get 25 to 35 years on a pump or something like that. Nowadays, they're like, 10 to 20 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And, then it's kind of like, oh my gosh, we're out of warranty on that one. That means anything that goes wrong with that, we're responsible. So you have to start putting that into the budget, kind of planning that it's either going to fail or something. You have to have kind of a.
Yeah. So we have, the citywide for our asset management program is called Cartograph. And so Cartograph has traditionally been utilized for pavement, valve out in the field, spread out across. The plants themselves were antiquated enough where it was clipboards, it was spreadsheets, it was not high technology. And now we're running into a growing pain because Cartograph is a spatial GIS, and so now instead of having 2 blocks of valves and pavement, now we have a room that's smaller than this room that has $3 million worth of equipment, and so spatially it's hard to put that in Cartograph. So our staff is working to try and get that streamlined on Cartograph, because that's exactly right. If you're gonna utilize a warranty, you have to have service records, and having all that in one place. How often it needs to be greased, how often was it serviced, what is the part, who's the vendor, all of that information needs to live in one place. So we're working on that. We've had, depending on who you talk to, we've had some success and we've had no success. There are multiple, we're gonna give it a go. If it doesn't work out, we'll change horses, and because there's plenty of other softwares out there. All whatever you want you can get out there. So we're working on it, but that is one of our big growing pains right now with the equipment that I was talking about with the proprietary rights, chemical costs, warrant, and then tracking all these things. So that's been a huge. The thought would be, if you're turning in your 1976 Ford Pinto for a Tesla, you're expecting it'll just drive itself. We're finding out these plants are technical and complex in themselves, and they still require a lot of upkeep and tracking. It's just a different form. In the interest of time, I won't go through all of the budget. So from here, as you can tell, I don't have anything printed out yet. We turned in the budgets Monday, so we're still, it's still fresh. The mayor is literally, as we speak, setting up workshop meetings with us. So we will all sit down, each division will sit down with the mayor, go through all of our requests, and he will advise us how we want to move forward, what should be, included, maybe reconsider this, ask us questions, be prepared. So after that is kind of where he will move that forward with Amy and the finance crew. In May, in preparation for the 13th and the 20th, I think we will start seeing all of this stuff kind of gelling together in a more coherent, because some of these things that I've got on my list won't make it. We've talked about that additional position that you guys have been reviewing the description for. That's kind of coming from me. The rest of this coming from the managers. I guess I leave it to you. There was some discussion about a special meeting. If you guys are looking to provide any significant feedback in time for the 13th and the 20th, I would, if you want that, you would need to meet before that. You would need to meet in the first week of May. And I still can't promise you all the information will be completed.
I thought that the June meeting was also canceled. You said May and June, so that was the reason.
I will be gone in June, so.
Okay,
Their regular meeting falls on a city holiday in June.
that's right. Okay.
We can still provide individual
Yes.
feedback, right?
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
just one, okay.
Yeah, typically, because I've in the past gone to like the disability advisory committee, and I've included things in the budget, and they would provide as a board, council, or whatever they are, they would provide a letter of support. So if this board council wanted to provide a letter of support, you would need to have a meeting in order to provide that. Also, budgets won't officially be adopted until August, so, yeah. But if you wanted to make any significant changes to what would be presented to council, it would need to happen in May. After that, it would just be, yes, we support or we don't support what
I mean, I guess
they're
you
asking for.
Could maybe send out an email just saying if there are so many people wanting to provide a consensus, then we could bring a meeting together, but if everybody's like, oh, I don't have anything, or I don't have anything, then it's probably not worth putting a meeting together.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
I'd like to lean on you to provide some, like, if there's any areas specific that you want us to look at, say, hey, we're considering this, we're not sure how committed we are to it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best use of our time, because I don't know that there's gonna be much value as I walk through the changes that we're making for water, wastewater, capital. I mean, I can get you all that information if they're interested, but be like that position that we're proposing, that would probably be something better vetted with this group to say, you know, these are the things you see, because you can kind of see how chaotic things get from, you know, and this position would help, you know, streamline things, whatever. So I think in the interest of just efficiency, it may be that I bring back that and maybe one or two other things and let you guys chew on it, provide support or not, and then.
Since we don't have a quorum today, but the other reason for having maybe another meeting is so that we can address some of the items that
Oh, yeah.
weren't
We got a
on
backlog
that
now.
here, so that we're not pushing out if we want to try and see if we can get some people on board for the summer, you know, interviews or something like that, should the committee go down their route. So that was the only other reason why, because, yeah, going 60 days plus without meeting with all the lists that you have, you and Haley have provided us, there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
A lot coming up.
I'm swamped right now, and we're, you know, a part of it, I'll talk later. It's a little frustrating right now with everything that's coming so fast, and, you know, we're trying to move as quickly as we can, and we're short, our financial advice, or there's two different positions. There's the project coordinator, and then there's the financial, we renamed it, but the person that looks at the budgets and the purchasing is gone. So all this stuff would typically be kind of consolidated and packaged up and be a little bit more coherent right now, but we don't have that position. We're actually having an interview tomorrow with that person.
For the finance one?
Yeah, it's the city's, or the public works, purchasing and budgeting person that
Specific.
corresponds with, our central purchasing and finance here at in the city hall, so.
What is that, is that position open for the public, what'd you say, project manager?
That's the one that we've drafted the job description.
Oh, it's not out yet.
It's not out, it hasn't been approved, it's not in the budget, so
Oh,
that would be a
got it.
budget request.
Okay,
The other one is out, open till filled,
yeah,
and it's an existing position.
because someone left and
Yep.
going back, yeah, okay.
So our May 15th was canceled, but we would have typically, before we changed our time, would have been May 8th, correct, at noon?
Yes.
And that would be before the 13th and the 20th meeting that you have coming up.
Yeah.
So,
I would say that would be as good a day as any.
well, I know sometimes you've had a lot of conflicts at
That week is, Wednesdays, yes, that's the advisory board week, but I have no advisory boards that day. I have DAC and MPO the next day.
So, I don't know, since we don't have a quorum or anything, how do you go about suggesting a meeting on May 8th for a special meeting? Because we can't even vote. Is there any way via email or something to do a?
I think as long as we just,
So special meetings may be called by a consensus of the commission, the chairperson, or the staff liaison, and we can determine the time and place at a later date. We just have to publish it as soon as
the
possible.
big thing is the publishing, letting them know when it is. I don't think,
You could, sounds like the
Yeah.
public works director could call a meeting pretty much anytime.
Okay, that's what I wanted to check, 'cause
Yeah.
Okay, we'll circle the 8th. I think that's probably as good as a date, because I don't want to go too early because FCS won't have us any information on the rates. And I don't want to, any later than that, it's going to be after the 13th. So the 8th seems to be the Goldilocks date. And I think specific to that meeting would be any information I have regarding the FCS report for you guys to look at, and then that position. There may be some questions as far as transportation capital, but I don't, the way this group dives into specific details, I don't want to give us a list of 10 things and we only get to the top 3. So I think at this point, for the interest of everybody's time, it would probably be best to limit the high value items and not get too deep in the weeds. Of course, you are all welcome to participate, or I know Cassie will be at the council budget hearing, so but you're all welcome to attend.
and those are streamed,
They should be streamed. You know,
okay,
we try and stream
just
everything.
in case I'm.
I don't think
I
we
just listen.
cannot. I think we have to not have a meeting if we can't stream it. Isn't that the case? Public meeting?
It doesn't, it's not a requirement.
Oh, that's right, it
Right.
just has to be able to come in
Yeah.
person.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's
asking, because I know council meetings, but sometimes workshops, because it's a
Yeah.
workshop,
Doesn't always
doesn't
get.
have to be streamed.
And is your end goal still to receive a letter of support from the commission for any budget items, or?
Yes, and I think since they don't adopt the budget until the readings in August, I guess let's see what happens in the conversation with the council. I mean, specific to I'm mostly thinking about the position that we're requesting. If that goes in a different direction and it's not relevant anymore, we won't need a letter of support. But if it seems to be, because the mayor can look at it and say, I wouldn't support that, but it still goes to the council, and the mayor would say, I don't support this position. But if any member of the council said, I have more questions, I think, and could kind of support it, at that point, it may be worth having this body provide a letter of support. But if it goes in there and it goes into the sausage machine and it comes out and it's maybe there's an agreement that we're going to wait a year and feel something out or whatever, it gets tabled. There's no point in having a letter. So
Well, but the timing, I think, is critical and important at this point, because this is your first time really doing your own presentation on the CIP. And so, and you just brought up a whole bunch of things between the downtown, with the bridge, with Snake River, all the different things. Having that person, you don't want to waste money later by, if you don't have it coordinated and you have to replace a line, or, you don't want an outside utility, coming in and ripping up all the work that you just did to replace the roadway and all that bit, and they have to put that in. I mean, that person eventually pays and saves the city money, so that we ensure that everything is all coordinated, so that once you put that last layer of asphalt on the ground, it should be good for a few years, no water breaks pending, all that type of craziness, That's that type of individual helping coordinate, because you don't have time, the engineers don't have time,
yeah,
they're
and that's what we're
valuable
experiencing.
asset. So I think when they see that presentation, they'll kind of see what you just kind of briefly told us what's going on, and I'm sure that was just a small snapshot. I think that can really tie into your budget presentation for support of that, when they see that, because
Okay. Commissioner comments? I've talked enough. I think we addressed the special meeting shooting for May 8th. We will send out like a Google poll. I mean, I don't know if we won't send out a poll. We'll just send out an email that
If
says
you're going or if you're not.
we would like a
Okay,
quorum
minutes
because we
and-
need to approve minutes and get some items. If we can't, we'll cross that bridge. We won't solve all the problems. If they can't make the 8th, we'll we'll deal with it.
And I'll just say a reminder that the comprehensive plan comment period ends on the 30th of April.
So,
I don't believe that there's like a specific time deadline, but
Yep.
April 30th.
and if you've read it, it's a kind of a cool little software. You just click on it, add a comment, and that's it. So it's pretty user friendly. And it's a public document, so everybody's commenting on it.
That's good.
And then-
Interesting.
And then I know future agenda items, that's to put stuff on, but it's nice to get the list that Haley has of things that we're supposed to that are coming down the pipe for us to work on. And that's helpful, and I don't know where we sometimes, I was trying to find that the other day, and I was like, oh, darn it, I'll just wait. But that list that, you're keeping us on track of saying, the compost agreement and the garbage agreement are coming up, and the final comments and agreements are.
Oh, like a future agenda?
Yeah, she laid out a really nice
Yep,
calendar,
yeah.
and I think it's just nice to get that, because, then we know in August that's coming up, and we should be seeing that on our agenda, or, so, that's nice.
Okay, and with that, we don't even need to take a motion.
Did I just, no, this is the, okay.
Looks close to it though. Okay, so we're adjourned.